Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Mob Psycho 100 Season 2, Episode 3. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I was thinking, this feels like a very existential episode, but then I'm also like, well, to be fair, a lot of this hinges on existentialism. I'm butchered that word, but Mob's whole character arc is very existential. Like him trying to figure stuff out, his place in the world, figure out his feelings and stuff. Maybe that doesn't necessarily fall in the lines of existential, but I think when it comes to Mob and the state of the story and his character arc, it feels like it would be, but maybe that's just me. Obviously, Regan's business has kind of been getting a lot more requests because the website has actually gained a lot of notoriety. Obviously, it's pretty. This world's version of Google, was it Mobgle or something like that? It's like this world's version of Google, and it's pretty early on search. So the first customer is a guy who wants Regan to curse somebody, which Regan kind of goes about it very haphazardly. He doesn't care because he's like, I'm not really into that. But the guy's like, yo, I traveled all this way. You need to help me curse someone. So like, all right, fine, I'll do it. And he's like, cool. But if you don't curse me, I kind of want to believe you. But if this ends up being BS, I'm going to curse you instead. And even Mob's like, was that really the best thing to do, to lie to the guy? I mean, my immediate thought was, well, we saw last episode what happened believing into rumors and stuff like that, how powerful that can be and how powerful that can manifest. So I'm like, if this guy believes wholeheartedly, because even Mom's like, yo, he's going to walk around believing he's cursed someone. It's like, Mom didn't really get into what that necessarily means. Is it like a thing of him believing he cursed someone? Isn't that going to weigh heavy on him, or at least it's going to create this negative energy where he's walking around believing he's cursed someone? But I'm like, yeah, you believe something hard enough, it is real, And so this is where Regan starts noticing. He's like, that's weird. He's like, Mob is actually voicing his opinion. He rarely does. He always just goes along with whatever Regan does. It's like, yeah, he believes in his master, but this is the episode he starts questioning a lot of stuff. So there's that job. Then the next job is a lady being stalked by, she thinks it's like a stalker, and she keeps seeing it outside her window, but it doesn't seem like there's any spirits nearby. Until we find out she is being stalked by her next door neighbor. Basically, he's using the supernatural phenomenon of he's able to create an out of body experience, and he's able to use that to spy on her because he has feelings for her. So obviously the lady was so creeped out and scared the moment she thought it was a ghost or something supernatural, but then the moment she found out it was a human, she's like, oh my god, you're disgusting, you creep me out. And then now the Mob's starting to question him. It's like, whoa. She was fine with it in the sense of when she thought it was something supernatural. Obviously, it had her scared, and she was kind of but it's the moment she found out it was a human, it changed things. My thought was, and how I initially interpreted that was is Mob kind of seeing the way people view the supernatural versus humans? Because I thought Mob was going to interpret that as kind of a thing, kind of similar to Claw, specifically to Scar's, sword dude, who was kind of talking about being basically rejected by society. I thought Mob would have been feeling that a little bit, where he's like, oh, she felt a certain way because it was a supernatural, versus now that she's a human, she's a little braver. That's what I thought Mob was taking away from that. But he was kind of wondering, what's that about? Why would she act a little differently if it's supernatural versus a regular human? But we kind of get more context to that later on, because their next client ended up being some three douchebags who were like, yo, we want to go to this area and take pictures in front of a spooky haunted place. And they get their photo, but they get pissed at Regan because it's hey, you're supposed to oh, we're supposed to pay you? You're only going to get paid if you're actually defending us. Nothing happened. We just came here and took a photo. It's yeah, but it's still time and services. But I guess truth be told is, when it comes to Regan's business, it's not it's not paid by the hour, it's paid by the exorcism. So he only gets paid when it's kind of he gets paid on commission. It's what I actually do is what gets me paid. So it makes sense, but they're also douchebags enough that they left Regan and Mob behind. So I kind of felt bad. I like the little transition thing where it's especially how it's animated, them catching a ride back into town. I was I mean, at the end of the day, Mob is still a middle schooler you're having taken out in the middle of the night. Because that's the thing. If you weren't such a phony, Regan, you wouldn't have to drag Mob around, but you need him around because he's your safety net. Your entire success of your business and reputation is based around Mob coming along with you actually doing the heavy lifting. But either way, those 3 clients came back, and it turns out, hey, we saw a ghost in our photo, and it's so creepy. And I love Regan's like, well, I could deal with it for you. And it zooms in on the computer. It's not Photoshop, it's Photoshop, which I was like, right, we know that that's how he's kind of dealt with stuff in the past. But for them, it's like, no, just getting rid of the photo isn't going to be enough. It's a thing of like, no, we need to get rid of that spirit. Just knowing it's out there is creepy, even though it's like, doesn't necessarily mean you're cursed. And also, whose fault is it? You're the ones that wanted to go to some creepy place to take a photo, so that was just them being stupid. But the moment they get there, they do find the spirits there, and it's 3, and Mob is ready to exorcise him until the dad speaks. Because it was a little boy in the photo. It turns out it's a family of 3 that died in a car accident, and they just wanted to live happily together. Now that their spirits, they're like, hey, we stay here. We never bother anyone. We're not like terrible spirits or anything. We just want to stay here long enough until we like move on together. And so now Mob is in this very like conundrum where it's like, right, anytime he's ever like fought spirits, it has always been like aggressive evil spirits, but these are spirits pleading like, yo, I just want to stay here with my kid. And just now Mom's like, well, what do I do? Especially because he's got the clients breathing down his neck like, yo, do something about it. And now because Regan's torn, because he's like, well, no, like the clients, what they want kind of goes, because the client is, customer's always right type of mentality. But the problem is that Dimple goes over and he kind of chastises his dad. He's like, oh, you see those guys over there? They want you like, they want you to be exercised. So if you kill them, you won't have to worry about it. Because like saying like the only reason why Mob is trying to exercise you is because they, and Dimple was trying to net egg them on because it's like, oh, you've been around a while. So saying the dad's spirit most likely built up enough power, and he charges up a little bit, but then he stops and he's like, no, I can never do something like that, especially not in front of my child. So he's like, please just let us stay here. And like this is where we get into the existential crisis, and finally Regan's starting to understand, and he kind of beats himself up a little bit because it's like Mob is so like caught up in his feelings of not knowing what the right thing to do is, because for him he's like, these spirits aren't evil, and if I were to like get rid of them, even though they're not the bad guys, if I were to get rid of the aggressors in this situation, it would be the humans. So would I be turning on people? And that's something regular people isn't something Mob's ever really had to deal with. Like anyone he's ever crossed paths with, especially last season, were evil spirits or other psychics, just regular normal humans. That's like, I think you could draw the line with like the whole psychics, especially because everyone he's ever fought, even other psychics like Taruki or anyone from Call so far, has always been, and even once again, the evil spirits have always been the aggressors. So he's always fought retroactively. He's never been on the offensive first, which is something this episode also introduces, because tying all these themes and elements together, Mob gets bullied by these 2 guys, and luckily he has people around him who cares. Dimple steps in, possesses one of the guys, strips him, and makes him embarrass himself. Risu shows up, makes the guy strangle himself with his tie, and then the entire Body Improvement Club comes over and squish the dude between their muscles. But like home dude, I'm blanking on his name now. Onigawara was saying like it's okay to basically defend yourself. You have the power as like head honcho at the school, so like you could use it. It's okay to fight back. But once again, that's never been, because I think it also stems from like Mob's lessons with Regan of just kind of like just using your powers all willy-nilly. It's just that doesn't come to Mob's naturally, and I think it's also because like he's afraid to like be in his feelings, because if he gets in his feelings, like that's when bad stuff can happen. I mean, once again, he's always plagued by the trauma of what he did to Risu when they were younger, so I think a lot of that plays a role in it. And Regan's beating himself up for not recognizing the signs. He's like, yo, I've been taking on too much work, and I didn't realize, I was not paying attention to how much of a toll this is taking on Mob. Because for him, he's like, right, Mob is in a very unique position because spirits and stuff is natural to him, like everyday regular life is to a regular person. Spirits are natural to Mob. So for Mob, spirits and humans are equal in his mind. So it's like only going after spirits, it's like that'd be the like attacking innocent spirits would be like, yeah, like will I ever, he even says so later on in the episode when he's in the bathtub, like, will there come a time where I use my powers for evil, and will I have to use it against regular humans? Like I said, I think they strike that delineance between regular normal humans and those with psychic powers, because even dealing with the bullies, he didn't fight back because he didn't want to, because he doesn't want to use his powers, because using his powers against regular humans who have no powers, no matter what they're doing to him, even though they're being the aggressors, to him that's the same thing as attacking this family of peaceful spirits. So it's quite an interesting conundrum that we've never really, and I guess I never really thought about that too before. I mean, we see like Mob has always been the whole like let you attack first type of person. He doesn't want to be the aggressor, but kind of seeing that really personified heavily in his episode. And I think that's going to be a major part of Mob's arc this season, is that element to it. So I thought that was so fascinating. Regan was able to get out of it by just spraying all the customers with salt, and he's like, yo, that was dealt with. And even Dimple was like, are you really okay with that really being it? He's like, yeah, you checked on those spirits, Dimple. They don't seem evil. He's like, no, I tested them. They seem perfectly fine. So it's like, I guess that's not something we have to worry about. But also, Regan ended up getting cursed. So I'm curious if the guy from the beginning of the episode will ever pop up again, considering that curse situation, but we'll see. Will the curse go away? Well, because he thinks he cursed Regan, so I'm curious, will it constantly pop up again, despite Dimple eating it? Maybe it's a one and done, like, hey, you cursed him, and you're thinking he's cursed, so maybe it won't reappear because Dimple ate the actual curse itself. Because even Dimple was like, yeah, it might be as much as like, hey, you might have something as unfortunate as you slip on a banana peel. And then like Regan was like, well, obviously that could be very calamitous if I'm like happen to be on a staircase or something at the time. So go ahead and get rid of that curse. And he don't want to bother Mob about it, because I think for him it would just like, Mob's got a lot on his mind, and it's like, this would just add more to it. So I'm curious to see how Regan handles that going forward. Like, right, we're getting a lot more business. We've got basically 3 cases. One we kind of doubled up on the 3rd case, but yeah, over the course of 2 days we did a lot, so that's a lot more than they typically do, and he's kind of eating up Mob's like spare time too. So it's just it was kind of an interesting development, and like I said, like insight into Mob's perspective on spirits versus humans, because obviously I think you could always probably say like one character might, because even Regan was thinking about it. It's like, right, do I choose some spirits, whether they're good or not? Do I choose them over the humans? Because for him, it's like spirits are one thing, but they're not even in his mind like they are for Mob, because Mob comes from a very unique perspective, because he's dealt with this a good chunk of his life, most of his life so far. Because we know he's had them ever since he was a little kid, but we actually don't know when. Like, did Mob have these powers from the get go, or did he like age up a few years and then they manifested? So his position might even be unique in comparison to other psychics, because I'm sure there's other psychics that don't view like spirits and humans in the same way that Mob does. So it's a real, like I said, it's really fascinating like dichotomy to really dive into. Like I said, I feel like this could be like a pivotal point for Mob, especially because he's bringing up those points of, well, if I use my powers for evil, will I eventually end up turning on people with my powers? And it feels like that's massively foreshadowing something that will most likely happen in this season, because there's probably going to be people who aren't psychics that, come after him type of thing. So we'll see. But yeah, like I was trying to say earlier, I'm curious if Reagan's going to be able to kind of pull back their work hours and how he compensates that. Will he end up taking down the website or something? I also really quickly, like before they took that first job with the whole curse and everything, I do love that he, even despite the failure of the situation, the book he was writing for the OVA is there, which I really appreciate. I was like, continuity. So I was like, little Easter eggs like that. Like, so yeah, that once again proving like I wonder, did that happen? I doubt that happened in the manga, that particular story. Might have, but maybe not maybe it wasn't like done. Because I know there's probably like I know there's some of like the more jokey gag things that exist in the manga that didn't get adapted in the anime because they're very like specific manga thing. Once again, what are they called? Like omakes or something like that. I think they're little gag sections of like a manga that obviously those didn't get adapted. So I'm wondering that OVA kind of fall in that category. Or is that something made specifically for an anime? Either way, just kind of keeping that continuity of still have the book despite it being a failure. There was a lot of effort and time put into it, and it's kind of a nice story in of itself. So Regan's keeping it. So it might be popped up in like the previous 2 episodes, but I feel like this is definitely the first episode I noticed because they made a point to show it off. So I thought that was just neat. So I'm very, very interested to ultimately see where the next episode ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.